It's time. The DOC joined the program. Our good friend Jeff Maakron, like I said, covers the Detroit Lions for Sports Illustrated, host of the Lone Wolves podcast, and has his own YouTube, Detroit Lions and SI, which you could.
Is it YouTube?
He does. He's grinding content. He just got emojis, and now me and Booner are a part of the Detroit Lions and SI YouTube channel officially. Let's bring him on. The DOC, how we doing, Doc?
Oh, am I frozen on here? Look at this.
No, you're back.
You're back. What's going on? Every time I get to start off frozen, you know what? I'll say this. The reports of the demise of the Detroit Lions, greatly exaggerated, baby. What's going on?
By the way, Easy said you – and by the way, I watched you and Easy today. You guys did a great job. Easy said that you were on him today for being a minute late. Doc, you've been late over a couple minutes, 5 straight weeks for us. You're getting after Easy?
Listen, I'm Middle Eastern. But I don't show up 15 minutes late. We had a time 15 minutes, 2-3 minutes. I got internet stuff going on. I'm an NFL reporter. You're allowed, and I'm also
Middle Eastern. So we all are.
Yeah, but I'm allowed. Listen, you got to give me at least being Middle Eastern an 180-second window to hop on, to get all the gadgets going on. And remember what I got to talk about.
All right, you know what? Fair. You get 180 seconds going forward. I don't even know how many minutes that is, to be honest.
It's 3 minutes.
3 minutes. All right, 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Quick math in my head.
Doc, I mean, we got a lot to talk to you about. We got Thanksgiving tomorrow. We got Frank Ragnow unretiring after retiring this offseason. We'll start with the Frank news, Doc. I don't know. Number one, where were you when it happened? And then number two, your reaction to it. Frank Ragnow's back.
Yeah, where was I? Today I was at my office. I was typing the reports about Josh Pascal. I had kind of understood what was going on with all the roster moves. There were so many guys that took place. I wanted to get them done. So it was something where I wanted to get that prepared. And then Christian messaged me. He's like, Frank news, I'm on it. I'm like, what Frank news? I'm like, oh, God, make sure it's confirmed. And we triple checked it, and we got it out there. But, I was excited. I was like, you know what? It's very smart. Now, to me, it was very funny because 2 hours prior, I was talking to my guy Adam on the Doc and Jock podcast, and I was joking around. I was like, and I shared it on our Twitter page. I said to Adam, I said, Dan on Friday should just get out there and hunt with Frank Ragnow and beg him to come back. But I had no realistic inclination that no signs, no tells, no thoughts at all that this would happen. So it was actually, like everybody's reaction, it was a true surprise. It was awesome. It was a good feeling to at least know that the offensive line is going to have some chance to recover, because you guys all saw it. Everybody saw it. Jared Goff, when you're investing $50 million, you want to try and do the best you can. And I'm not going to lie. I really felt like once they started seeing the huge reaction that people were having to the fact that there's no passing air yards, the explosive plays have been bad, the offense is not the same. You're kind of one-dimensional, and you've had multiple games with Jamison Williams getting 0 catches. That's not how it's supposed to work. So this is great news. I'm very excited, but like everybody else, man, can we figure out a way to get him to play tomorrow? But you can't, and you don't have Graham Glasgow or Christian Mahogany. So you got to wait and see what he brings to the table. But like everybody else, something's better than nothing. And I feel like the Lions were quite desperate with that offensive line. And when you're desperate, I don't know who called who, but in the end, the relationship is back on. And the good thing is there's a chance maybe that with the contract that he's got, he's under contract this year, next year, maybe if this all works out, maybe you get him for next year too.
Yeah, Doc, can I just ask you, because I know, and you were one of the people kind of at the forefronts of it, I think a couple of weeks ago, just saying, hey, like, you're not winning you're not winning a Super Bowl with this Lions offensive line currently. And obviously Brad did kind of a poor job of building it and getting prepared for this season. And I think you said it I think it might have been 2 weeks ago after the Eagles loss in a post-game show that you had brought up and just said, like, hey man, like, maybe this Lions front office wanted to punt this year, knowing they didn't have an offensive line good enough. Do you think with Frank back, because Jeff and I had the conversation when this came along at the start of the show, where we feel like Frank's obviously it's not like he retired at a bad part of his game. He was the second best center in the NFL last year, second team All-Pro. So adding a second team All-Pro, a top 5 center, changes this offensive line. Do you think this is back to where it's like, hey, this is a contending team? Another, you have a top 10 offensive line now all of a sudden, and Frank kind of makes that big of a difference moving forward when he does return?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, man, first and foremost, it's clear. Listen, the way in which now we look at the trade deadline is a little bit different. I still would have looked at a defender. Most people wanted Jalen Phillips. But look, if that talk was happening, you were hoping, you still got to see what the guy brings to the table. He was off for 6 months. So it's a great move. It's, I think, an upgrade over what you have. But we still got to see what level of fitness he's going to have, what kind of, if you're going to throw him in there against the Rams, that's a tough first game back. The Rams defensive line is no joke. So I'm excited that at least you have the more hope that they can get to the postseason and have success. The Super Bowl is a big dream, and you got to be firing on all cylinders. You got to have a lot of luck, and there's a chance based on how everything's been going. You're going to face the Packers team a little bit depleted. You got to go up against a Cowboys team that are gung-ho. I mean, you think they're going to be happy that you curb stomped them in Dallas? They're going to come here and, that team is playing pretty well. So you got to get to the Rams winning at least one of these next 2 games. So I'm a little bit concerned still about how the offense is going to look with the reserves now coming in the offensive line. Coyote Awosika, it's going to be interesting to see how he rebounds after a tough game. I'm looking at it like at least you have some opportunity to get this offense going. It wasn't feasible that the Lions were going to run the offense that they had last year without Frank Ragnow. Now that you have him, first and foremost, the first thing is that Jared Goff can start looking like a little bit more like Jared Goff. Otherwise, you're going to have idiots like me talking about Shedeur Sanders, bringing up other names, just speculating about stuff that we really shouldn't be speculating about, because Jared Goff, when it's bad, it's bad. And listen, I know people don't like the phrase, it's got to be perfect for him. You need a functioning offensive line for Jared Goff. And that offensive line wasn't functioning. And I'm just thankful that when you talk, you guys do it and we do it. When you talk about something that you're concerned about and everybody knows it and everybody knows the root cause of it, you can't hide from it. You had to do something. And if that was always an option, that's great. It's a great, great thing that the relationship was still open, that he can come back and somewhat contribute. But it just kind of stinks because it just feels like the timing of everything has, and like I told you guys in the preseason, it just feels like the timing was all misaligned with the draft picks that Brad got, some of the projects that he took. Now you have a guy like Frank Ragnow, maybe Taylor Decker, their futures are up in the air. So I always wanted it to be pinpointed where everything would be a little bit more smoother this year and next year, but it's the NFL. Things were a little bit disjointed, but I do think that first and foremost, you don't want Jared Goff taking all those pressures and hits and all the struggles that they had, and it wasn't good. And I truly wonder if they felt like Tate Ratledge could have hopped in and just had a seamless transition, or they felt like Graham Glasgow would be better than he was. But we all said it like, man, Graham has limitations. And the last game that we saw prior to the year was against Washington. It wasn't that good, but they tried it. And I think that once Dan saw the film of what the heck happened against the Eagles and against the Vikings and against what happened last week, where you're like, my goodness, man, there's just too much that makes this offense doesn't, produce in a way that everyone's happy with. They were open and willing to accept Frank Ragnow coming back, which is good, because I do think that, which is crazy, because I can share, Dan is going to do a media session on Saturday. And one of my questions was going to be, listen, based on how the offensive line played tomorrow, was going to be, hey, do you got to shuffle this offensive line? I know you keep saying you need to make corrections. I was going to ask him directly, do you need to take some guys out of the lineup to make things go better? And thankfully, maybe I don't have to ask that.
I brought up on Twitter, at least, that I think this not only impacts Tate Ratledge or, whoever's on the other side of Frank, but also the run game. What do you think this means for a guy like David Montgomery, Doc, who's, kind of had up and down games? The usage has been questioned. You asked Dan Campbell about him, and he just said, oh, of course I'd like to get Demon more carries. As soon as he responded right to you, Doc. What do you think this means for a guy like David Montgomery, who's kind of an in-between the offensive line runner, in between the tackles guy, and now you have one of the best centers coming back? What do you think it means for a player like him, and just the run game in general, to be honest with you?
You know what's actually funny? The more I think about it, based on the game that Jahmyr Gibbs had, Dan's probably thinking, and he can't say it, he probably really wanted to say the truth. The truth was probably, listen, mofo, We got Jahmyr Gibbs. Don't you see what you got in Jahmyr Gibbs? He's like, don't you see our offensive line? We got a Ferrari. Like, I know, David, you guys all love David and we can do. And I did say in the question, could you have used them better in short yardage situations? So I was clear, crystal clear, that I wanted him used on specific downs. So maybe I'm too specific. Maybe it's one of those deals where he's like, listen, man, you're kind of getting into some stuff that you shouldn't be asking about in terms of game plan or critiquing me on specific plays. But I don't care. At this point in time, you ask reasonable questions that the fans want to know, and they want to know about David Montgomery. But when it's tough to argue for David Montgomery when Jahmyr Gibbs goes for over 200 yards of all-purpose yards. But in certain spots, I feel like David Montgomery has now become the forgotten guy because Jahmyr Gibbs is so awesome and so explosive. But you still can use David Montgomery in certain situations, and maybe Frank Ragnow coming back will unlock a little bit more of his potential. And I think everybody's happy. Look, it was one of those questions where I was always of the opinion when we said to John Morton at the combine, we said, you got a lot of mouths to feed. And they're like, it's a good problem to have. I don't know if it's a good problem to have. I think that there's a talent in David Montgomery that you're not being able to utilize in terms of maybe getting to second down and shorter by giving him the ball. I think you can get to third down and 2 or 3 if you give it to David Montgomery, let him power through. But, it was too inconsistent. The offensive line was the engine of the operation. And I think one of the biggest issues was Jared Goff, but the other byproduct was David Montgomery fell by the wayside. Not a lot of, he's getting, Jahmyr Gibbs is earning twice as many targets and carries as David Montgomery, and they want to use Jahmyr Gibbs more in the passing game. There was a quote Dan said. He's like, it's tough to not give the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs. Look what he can do on every given play. And I realized, man, you're right. Probably he's like, man, we got a Ferrari and we're about to use him and make some plays. And this guy's asking about the number 2 guy. So listen, in the end, it's all about finding ways to make the offense more efficient, look a little smoother, run better on third down, and look a little more explosive. You're never going to have all those things happen at once, but I do think that David Montgomery still should be a factor in this offense and maybe even utilized in short yardage situations to get those first downs and to keep him involved in the game, maybe earlier in the game. But listen, man, it's hard to argue. Jahmyr Gibbs, 2-time NFC Offensive Player of the Week. This last game was spectacular. What's good, at least in these situations, is when you go up against an opponent like the Giants, whose clear weakness was run defense, and then you just hammer it down their throat. It was great to see, especially in overtime.
Yeah, well, you asked about Micah Parsons, Doc. He gave you a 3-word answer for that one too. What the hell's going on with you and Dan? You got a little, what's going on?
Yeah, we got to figure this out. You got to figure this out.
The people are wondering. He said, he's a good player. I like our tackles.
He's a good player.
Probably could have gave you a little more there.
Can you ask, just straight up, just say, do you hate me? Like, what's going on here? Can we just be honest?
Listen. Okay. I always go back and forth and go, okay, is it personal? No, listen, first and foremost, Dan at this point in time is hard to assess because he ain't sleeping. He came into that presser at least drinking 2 coffees and maybe was feeling the effects. Now, I did get a chance to listen. He was also asked about Micah Parsons by Danny Rogers on the film review.
Gave her a detailed answer.
It was detailed on film, but it was more like, he keeps coming. He's got a lot of energy. He gave the football knowledge. He's got the film there. I also sensed that he didn't want to give any, credence to any, type of motivational type things that he could say that Micah could use. He was just kind of keeping it like, we know he's a great player. It's
come on, Doc.
Listen, he could have, and I know it is funny when you juxtapose.
It's like 4 straight times now.
Yeah, when you juxtapose that with he gives me that answer, and then everybody else, he's even a question later at the end. One of the last questions was, why is your defense giving up so many explosive plays? And he thought about it, gave it thought. Listen, in the end, I thought about it. I was like, okay, when he lost to the Eagles, I said the Super Bowl window is closed. Question Jameson Williams. When you give a lot of opinions, who knows what gets sent his way from what I say. I also do a rugged podcast on Thursday. We say a lot of off the wall things. We cuss. We just say whatever's in our head without a lot of thought. So something could have came across his desk. He doesn't maybe like the headlines that I choose. Maybe the Jameson Williams talking about Mike Valenti. He didn't like that. I don't know, but whatever in the end, I always view it like if he liked me, I'm doing my job wrong. I look at it like if I'm going to be the guy that's known for something, being known for, being the one guy that Dan Campbell hates is pretty unique, because genuinely speaking, the questions aren't that difficult. And I'm pretty sure he came across a headline that was a little spicy that he didn't want to read, but well.
We'll find out. I mean, let's just keep seeing it. We'll keep an eye on this. And I think we're at like 4 straight times that this coaching staff has given you close to nothing. So on Saturday, Saturday, we're going to find out.
I will ask your advice, because I thought about this. Listen, I don't need all his words to fill the copy. I have a lot of things I could say and type. Should I, if he keeps doing it, should I stop asking questions so that others can get useful information?
I love it. Keep asking.
Or my thinking is, I'm just going to start asking more elaborate questions that maybe he's going to have to be forced to answer. I don't know how it plays out, but it is unique because, yes, he is giving a lot of longer answers to others. But in the end, remember this way, truly, from how I always read it, journalism is asking and printing what they don't want printed. So I'm asking him questions he doesn't want to answer. And the more that I do it over 5 years, it's going to get annoying. And especially in this year, when it's the most pressing year, that this is the most challenging year he's had. I mean, he had to go out and get a retired guy to fix a problem his general manager should have fixed.
That's fair. Can I ask you, with this whole Frank Ragnow thing, I want to ask you, because you've talked about it a lot already. One thing that I think another angle, I mean, we could take 6, 7 different angles on this. I did not mean to do that, by the way. I did not mean to say 6, 7. That just happened. Yeah. That's just rattled me. I did not mean to say that. That just rattled me. All right. Jared Goff, though, because I actually saw some national media today, a couple people on Twitter tweet out and just be like, well, Jared Goff's just been bad. It has nothing to do with the offensive line. He's just missing throws, which I disagree with. I think it has to do, obviously, everyone knows the timing of everything and him having more time. What do you think this means for Jared Goff? You've been around Jared Goff before. You had, conversations with him. For a guy like him, he's got to be pretty excited that a guy like Frank's coming back, correct, Doc? This might change everything and give him more time to throw to where he's able to have better games, and maybe fans will get off of him a little bit when it comes to making some of those throws.
Yeah, push the ball downfield, Doc.
Maybe.
Throw the ball down the field,
maybe.
Right?
Which he can't, because he doesn't have enough time to. Now he's going to have time.
He doesn't have enough time to, and the defenses have figured out, ways in which to take that away. And the Packers are going to do the same kind of thing. You bracket JMO, you give him extra attention, safety help over the top. It's kind of relatively a straightforward answer, which is don't let guys get behind you. And so that's how defenses have been playing the Lions. But when you have Jahmyr Gibbs, it should open things up. So I'm excited for this Packers game. Look, Jared Goff, we all know it. And it's not disrespectful. Most quarterbacks are going to need a functioning offensive line. Graham Glasgow was really uniquely in his stats, was really great in terms of the run game and his run defense and his run blocking, but really porous against pass rush. It was wild just how opposite it was. And it's unfortunate. Tate Ratledge up and down, and Coyote Awosika just had a real bad game against the Giants. So now that you get Frank Ragnow back, at least the first thing you're going to realize is, okay, he's going to be comfortable. There'll be no issues with protection. Frank Ragnow will see quickly where the offensive line needs to go in terms of the strength of where to direct people. I'm excited about that. When you look on film with the offensive line, you just see it's true. One guy will miss one spot here. Another guy will have take a responsibility he's not supposed to do. Or, quite frankly, here's the tough part, is that against some of these stout defensive lines, they just get out physical. They're just not as stout as the opponents. And that's why these defensive lines have a lot of, these guys get paid a lot of money to be bulls out there. It's not easy to block an opposing, 280 pound to 350 pound athletic defensive lineman. It's a wild job to have. So it's a crazy in the trenches, man. That's why the game is won in the trenches. Jared Goff needs time. He needs to be able to, the reason why it's clear on film, it's not because they're not trying to get Tesla the ball. He can't get to the third read because he's already on his ass. So he can't get the ball to Tesla to see if he's open because the first, second reads, his time to throw has been diminished. So you didn't need all the advanced analytics to know that once Frank Ragnow left, the offensive line was never the same. And the offense, and I think, like I said, it might be my favorite question in my 5 years there is could you have run last year's offense? Is it feasible? They're trying to get as close to it as possible. And bringing Frank Ragnow back is going to at least give Jared Goff some comfort that, hey, maybe in the end we'll find out that Jared called him, was like, listen, man, I need you. I'm dying out here. I need you bad. Like, I can't run this offense. And I think the combination of them keeping tabs on Frank Ragnow, Jared and Dan and Brad all talking, making sure like, hey, we need this guy. And thankfully that the bridge and the line of communication was open. And thankfully too, that whoever made the hunting schedule allowed it to end around these times where he's like, all right, I got my fix. I had my time off. Let's come back. It's really, really cool to see. And it's true. I was joking about Dan calling him on Friday. The deadline was today. I didn't even know that. I didn't even know. I wasn't paying. I thought it was so far off the radar that I didn't even consider it to be realistic that he'd want to do it. Like, once you get hunting and enjoying that lifestyle, the retired life is nice, when you have all the means and your body intact. But, to me, in my humble opinion, Frank is a true loyal friend, and he sees his guys struggling. He sees the team. You got to feel a strong sense of guilt that guys like Jared Goff, Taylor Decker, Penei Sewell are not able to meet their goals because you're not there. And when you're feeling relatively good, 6 months off of football makes you feel great. I just hope that when he comes back, that you get at least a 80 to 90% of the old Frank to help this out. So Jared Goff has to listen, guys. You guys know it. We all saw it. Jared Goff just last year was spectacular. So you give him help, he can do it. The question mark is going to be against amazing defensive lines. Can he make the reads and throw the ball and take those chances and fit the ball in those tight windows? That'll be the key. And at least you're closer to success now with Frank Ragnow than you ever were when he was gone. So I'm excited because, we want to unlock Jared Goff. We want the old Goff back. Idiots like me are talking about Shedeur Sanders already.
By the way, I just Shedeur Sanders, and shout out to Kirk. Was that former Packers quarterback, I think, who brought that up? Shedeur Sanders
Packers
live in this offense.
Yeah, and I'll share my thoughts on that too, because it was funny because people didn't understand the whole story or what I was saying.
Yeah,
I'll share it. Yeah, it was simple.
Explain.
Guys, simple. It's a simple thing. People are like, what was that about? No, I was not advocating to bring Shedeur Sanders here. Clearly, when I write they tell me at SI, like, you don't really need to put fact or fiction, but I'm like, yes, I do, because people don't understand what that means. What it means is somebody said something, let me talk about it. That's all it was. And somebody said, hey, I think he said it out loud and they publicized it. I think that Shedeur would fit with the Lions. And I said, let's talk about it. So if you just go beyond your visceral, that is nonsense, and you read the article, I told you why the answer is fiction. It's never going to happen. But my job is to enjoy the conversation. But you get a couple people that are like, this is ridiculous, this is clickbait, this is nonsense. But it's like, no, it's something that was talked about, and I addressed why it will never happen. Now, the odds of it happening are quite long and maybe doesn't need to be talked about. But the blessing of me being able to write whatever the heck I want is that I saw that, and I've always gone with the same thing like I do here. If it's interesting and I go and I look at it and I go, ooh, I write it. Simple as that. I don't have no filter. I don't care if 1,000 people hate it. People read that story and commented on it on all these different platforms. It was awesome. It was a good story. It was a good debate. And people that read it, I saw how many people actually stayed on it. Those that read it understood it. That Goff, guys, the reason why you want this offensive line to shine is you're going to be married to Jared Goff for the next 4 or 5 years. It's going to happen. I'm sorry. Get ready. This is Goff's team. And if you want to know more details, read Fact or Fiction. Is Shedeur Sanders auditioning for the Detroit Lions? And listen, thank you, Kay Adams. You did wonders with the cookies reply to my site. And you also did wonders by having a guest say something like that. I was like, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful conversation.
Well, Doc, I want to ask you about the injury report that kind of came out. No Graham Glasgow. You already don't have Christian Mahogany. Offensive line is going to be a little different. It's going to look a lot different tomorrow until Frank gets back. But in your mind, can you kind of expand on just the timeline of a couple guys, like with Graham, Kirby, Josh Paschal? What happened with that? Just some of the guys that are out, and when do you expect them to return? And then Marcus Davenport being back. Can you just kind of give your thoughts on the injury report today?
Yeah, well, the biggest question, I don't even know how to phrase it, because it's just, they didn't do it. I wonder why they didn't put Kirby on IR. Like, did they just hope and hope and hope? There's no, we saw him running, which is a good sign. I would think that maybe with another week of full time, that maybe next week he could start practicing, but nothing official yet. Josh Paschal is unfortunate. He's going to, unfortunately, in my mind, probably not ever suit up again for the Lions. I don't know how you could sell to this fan base that a guy that has not played a full season in his entire rookie career is going to be somebody you're going to continue to invest in. Maybe they do and surprise me based on a contract. I mean, they gave Levi another contract, so I wouldn't be, I would be a little bit surprised if they brought one or both back. I just think that availability is the best skill. And for Josh Paschal, listen, those back injuries are tough. They give you 3 weeks to try and showcase what you're about. And with Tyleik Williams, Ali McNeil playing well, and having Marcus Davenport back, they feel like with Mekhi Wingo that, even though he can't get on the field, that Josh Paschal was not activated enough to the point where the coaches felt like he could be productive. So he's out for the year. So that's, another pick that you could kind of look at and say, man, Brad, you missed on a couple picks early in your tenure.
I've interrupted the video to tell you about our friends over at Sleeper in the new promotion they have going on. A brand new promotion is now live on Sleeper that could be paired with the 100% deposit match promotion that's already been going on. It's a free $20, no deposit required, plus first-time users will also receive 100% deposit match up to $100. Use the code CT Sports. You guys should already be using Sleeper. It's one of the fastest organically growing fantasy platforms in the entire world with millions and millions of active users. They are crushing it. And if your state allows it, you should be using Sleeper Picks. It's a real money product that connects friends over picks. You just choose 2 to 8 of your favorite players from pregame live or across different sports. Pick more or less than the predicted stats. And on Sleeper, you can get up to 1,000x payouts. Share with your friends. Get rewarded together. Don't forget, code CT Sports. Get a $100 deposit up to $100, and you got your free $20 entry. Sleeper is taking care of their customers. Always remember, gamble responsibly. Now let's get back to the video.
That maybe could have been a little bit more successful. I am concerned about the Graham Glasgow injury in regards to at least this week. You need him. He's a player that, at least in one aspect of the game, is a veteran option. When you lose linemen, it's never a good thing. But maybe Tristan Colon might show them something that can benefit the team in pass protection, because it was just really rough. I'm curious to see when Graham Glasgow does come back, does he still have a spot? Because Miles Frazier has been activated, so that's good news. Do you throw him out there at left guard and stick with Cologne? This is like a great opportunity for Cologne. If you want to take someone's job, before Frank Ragnow comes back, earn an opportunity. You could be back next week, and maybe the team will. Listen, it's not going to be a end-all, be-all answer, but I think Miles Frazier has a chance to get in to the game against the Cowboys at home. We'll see if there's opportunities. Now, Marcus Davenport is always a tough thing to talk about because we don't know how long he physically is going to hold up. We always see him. He works his way back. And if you give anything out of it, the best way to look at it is if you get anything out of Marcus Davenport, that's a bonus. But the big question mark for Kirby Joseph is, Dan said that it's to the point where they're kind of evaluating it. The biggest concern is they don't want him in and out of the lineup. They want to make sure that it's to the point where if he starts playing, he can stay in the lineup. But I'm not so certain that this year he's going to have any significant decrease in the pain in his knee. That's kind of how Dan said it. Was they had thought that the irritation would go down. It didn't. So it's gonna be interesting to see when he starts practicing what's going on. And you need that guy healthy, because it's also affecting Brian Branch. Thomas Harper's done a good job, but he's not Kirby Joseph. And I do want to see the top safety unit back in the league. It stinks too. Brock Wright's out. Khalif Raymond might open the door for Isaac Tesla. So we'll see how that happens. But, and also too, in regard to Jared Goff, when you read his press clippings, if you listen to his answers, he tries to fly through those answers. And I'm telling you, typically when I write everything a player says, it's usually over 1,200 words. Jared Goff is regularly like 600 to 700 words, and it's super easy to write. So he flies through those answers. I asked him about Brock Wright, and I said, "What's your relationship like with him?" And he's like, "Oh, he's great. He's a good ass. Like, doesn't give a whole heck of a lot." And he does so many interviews that he tries to fly through them, and to a point where you're like, man, I wish he was a little bit more elaborate on some things. But it's all good with Jared Goff and with everybody going on. It's the injuries. It's like you miss some here, but you're getting some guys back. And Frazier and I'm curious to see if maybe Mr. Tom Kennedy maybe does something in special teams. And the one thing that I would think is that you got Eric Hallett back. I would think that Craig Reynolds, who got waived today, I think has an opportunity to also, if he clears waivers, I think pay attention. I think the Lions are going to want him to stay on the practice squad.
Yeah, Doc, I do want to ask you, just going into tomorrow's game, I want to get your confidence level on this defense. I know 2 weeks ago versus the Eagles, they looked good, but then last week versus Jameis Winston, the Giants, it was kind of a different story where Jameis, almost threw for 300 plus or 400 yards. I don't even know what it was. I think it was like I don't know the exact number, but it was an insane amount. What's your confidence level on this defense, especially tomorrow versus a guy like Jordan Love?
Yeah, the game tomorrow, man, I'm panicking because I think, listen, first and foremost, we have to, when we evaluate this game, remember, these guys are on short rest. They just played Sunday, and now they're going to turn around and play Thursday. This is going to be, I think, a battle of attrition. I do think it's going to be a close contest, but I feel like the Lions have more offensive weapons to score points than the Packers do, and they're a little bit healthier than the Packers. The big key is going to be on offense, making sure that the Packers defensive line doesn't repeat what they did in week 1, and that you have a lot better communication with your offensive line. Micah Parsons cannot take control of this game. He cannot be wrecking plays. Look, the defense was now starting to be talked about as the strength of the team, and you get DJ Reed back. He's a little bit rusty, and that performance was not good. Listen, Coach Kafka from the Giants let it all hang out, ran trick plays. He caught the Lions off guard in a lot of spots, and there were a lot of missed tackles, a lot of mistakes that were made. It was wild to see the defense get torched like that. But Jameis is a veteran, and also, too, he knows some tendencies of Dan Campbell, and he can speak to some things to the coaching staff. So you got to give credit to Jameis Winston for being a true pro and what they were able to do. First and foremost, you can't give up that many explosive plays. That was atrocious. That was like everybody was sitting there going, wow, what the heck's going on with all these chunk plays that the offense that the defense was allowing. But first and foremost, what everybody sees, which I think upset everybody. Everybody saw it. You're not getting pressure from the front four. You didn't get pressure. Aiden had, let's just say, because there was a massive debate, which I enjoyed for 48 hours, he had an okay game. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't spectacular, but it wasn't good enough to allow and disrupt Jameis Winston from having all those throwing, all the time to throw and finding all his receivers and all the places he was able to make. So your defensive line is not doing enough from that perspective. And remember, a sack is a great play because you also lose a bunch of yards. So hits and pressures are nice, but you can get a pressure where a guy steps up in the pocket after 5 seconds and throws the ball. You still get a pressure. You want to look at a little bit more of an advanced metric, like effective pressures that cause, negative plays. And so for the Detroit Lions, it can be better. And I get it. That's why I love Detroit, is they're like, and they think with their heart. They're like, if we're going to pay a guy $50 million, he better be at 18 sacks like Myles Garrett. It's unrealistic, but I love it. I love that mindset, which is, hey, we're paying you like you're the best. And so act like the best, but he's not. And so that's why, guys like me, Hefe, Booner, were like, hey guys, if Aiden has 8.5, 9 sacks now, imagine if the guy opposite of him was a little more disruptive. He might have 15 sacks by now. So that's why everybody said, hey, what about a Danielle Hunter? What about, hey, you saw Houston. They look pretty good against the Bills with 2 defensive ends. What do you know? Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter making it look real miserable for the Buffalo Bills. What do you know? It's nice when you can pressure the quarterback. And so, quite frankly, the diagnosis for the Giants game was you had not enough pressure. You didn't win the battles. And listen, I tweeted it as it happened. Aleem McNeil had a nice forceful push at the end of the game, but he had some reps against Andrew Thomas where when Andrew's watching with his boys, he had to laugh. Had to be a 60, 70-pound mismatch, and Andrew Thomas barely had to do any work to evade Aleem McNeil. I tweeted live. I'm like, wow, from way up here, I could see the mismatch that Andrew Thomas could easily block Aleem McNeil. But you want him out there, and you're not gonna, they weren't expecting them at that time on those plays to rush the passer, but seeing it live when you watch the film, it's kind of funny to see that Andrew Thomas was matching up against a guy 65 to 70 pounds lighter than him and trying to go out there. So I know they want to get Ellie McNeil out there a little bit more on the edge, but that matchup was kind of funny. You got to figure out ways to get the pass rush, and thankfully, at least you have a guy in Marcus Davenport. The 20 plays that he's healthy before something else happens. Let's see what he can bring to the table, because I truly believe if he's healthy, if he can stay out there, if he can avoid the freak injuries, maybe you unlock Aiden Hutchinson with that one addition. The defensive end at the deadline is Marcus Davenport. Let's just see. Let's just maybe do something. If all of you are out there when you're eating your turkey tomorrow, just say, hey, can the guys coming back stay healthy for the push? Because if they stay healthy, then maybe they can unlock some of the things we are all asking for.
Yeah, people don't. I mean, that defensive line conversation. I got a video coming out on Friday on our YouTube, which everyone in the chat should go watch. It's a deep dive into this D-line, Doc, and everything you said is true. There's a lot of data that backs up, like, the sacks argument isn't the end-all be-all. They're 8th in the league in sacks. They were 5th. Now they dropped a little bit, but that doesn't tell the full story. Jameis Winston had the most time to throw last week. So I suggest people go check out that video on Friday, and you'll find out more context with it. But I want to ask you, just over the next 6 games, Doc, we kind of talked about at the beginning of the show how important it is for the Lions just to hold on with Frank Ragnow coming back. I mean, you go 3-3 over the next 6 games, Doc. You're in a tough spot here. I mean, you could be 10-7. So what's the next 6 games look like to you? Just some of the matchups maybe you're excited for, concerned about. How do you think the next 6 games plays out? And what's your confidence level? I think they have to go 11-6 just to try and lock it in. And that's you got to go. I mean, you got to go 4-2 here over the next 6. But what do you think of the rest of the season, the schedule?
Yeah, this game right here and the next one is super important. You get this W, you still have a chance for the division. I love our chances at home, at least to advance. You don't win this game, now you're 0-2 against the Packers. Now you're potentially going to have to go out on the road. Do you want to go out on the road against the Packers in the playoffs and then have to maybe face the Rams or the Eagles? You're talking about, when Dan said the hard road, it could be the hard road in the playoffs to try and get to the Super Bowl. So it's very imperative that you win this game. These next 2 games, you got to go 1-1. And I do think they'll step up for the Rams game. It'll be ultra competitive. And then you got the Steelers and then the Vikings and then the Bears. So I look at it and I say, the next 6 games, you got set. You at least got to get, you're absolutely right, 4-2 would be ideal to get to 11. It's going to be tough, and it starts with the Packers. It's really tough to lose Graham Glasgow and to lose Kirby Joseph again. And so it's going to be, I think this game is going to be back and forth because it's equally as important. Both teams on a grind. I look at it like the Cowboys game could be wild. Everybody thinks that the Lions own the Cowboys, but they're coming in playing pretty well. They have explosive plays. They got Dak Prescott, who's been up and down. It really is going to depend on the Cowboys and how they, they're just a team that their defense is so up and down that the game could really turn out to be, which is so crazy. It could be a game in the 40s, or it could be so tight defensively. It could be a dud and be like a 10-7 kind of game. That's how the variance of the way in which both these teams play. I'm hoping for a wild game with the Cowboys and at least some entertainment value. But listen, if you realize you're not at this point in the season, you're not in the class of the Rams. The Rams are complete, and Matthew Stafford is playing at an MVP caliber level. So let's just be realistic and throw that out as a loss. The rest of the way you're in most of these games, you should, there might be a letdown here or there, but you have an opportunity, I think, if you can get this Packers win, I think that'll give this team confidence that maybe you only lose 1 or 2 more the rest of the way. And so if you end up being 11-6, that puts you in a prime position. And I do think that Bears game is going to be wild. I do kind of hope personally that it's for some stakes, because I think the narratives will be great, and Ben Johnson getting this team to learn how to win is crazy. But I think that this Packers game is going to really kind of show some things. If you lose it and you lose it in a way that's disheartening or mistakes or, they come back, then it's going to be tough. I think that you're going to really, really you don't want it so that, you're 0-2 going with Frank Ragnow returning. That's a lot of pressure on one guy to come back. So you're absolutely right. Start with the Packers, get there. If they win against the Packers, there will be some momentum built. And at least, listen, the part that we all should be thankful is that they had the last game at home, and this game and the next one is at home too. It'll give you an opportunity to compete. And guys, it's really that close. It's that razor thin where just one bounce of the football, one turnover, one key mistake could result in these games for the Detroit Lions ending up on the wrong side. So just hope that they execute. In this game, though, I just feel like the Lions have more weapons where it'll be back and forth. But late in the game, I just see it like the Packers having like a 24-21 lead, 20. I have it. So Lions trailing 23-21 with a couple minutes left, and they move the ball down the field and kick a game winner to make it 24-23. I feel like it's going to be in that 1 point category. And just be real close. But I think you got enough weapons. St. Brown's going to want to continue to kind of showcase that, hey, these drops are an anomaly and I'm feeling better. And also, too, I just think this one, if you're asking me, without a tight end, without, with knowing what the Packers are going to try to do to stop Gibbs, they clearly know what he can do. Guys, it's JMO time. He got the aura from the doc. We talked about things, we got the things. We didn't talk to it was weird because when I went up to talk to him, the media was just kind of trailing me. So I was one of the first people there, and there was like they're like, okay, fire away. And it was, you don't want to wait because you only have so much time. So I just fired off. Hey, how do you feel about playing on Thanksgiving? And luckily everybody came in and joined in. But it was funny. Everyone was messaging me like, was he on something? I was like, I wasn't paying attention, because that's how he always is. That's how a lot of players talk to me. They just kind of take their time, measure their words so that I don't pick out a part that there's going to be a headline. So that's how he always talks. But I figured, you know what? Let's just also talk about something not football related. And I thought the question I asked him about basketball was fun. And listen, that's just how it goes. When there's so many people, I can share when there's scrums, the athletes kind of are really tight-lipped. You can talk to these players a little bit more one-on-one. You get a lot more information. And a lot of the players, guys, do like talking to me one-on-one. And a lot of players will give me fist bumps. And I talked to Terry on a little bit. And I actually, the locker room does not dislike me, but they also realize the job at hand. And I think that with what goes on, they understand what the deal is that I have things I want to ask about, and I'm not shy to ask it.
Doc, before we get to mailbag, there is a question I wanted to ask you. Booner and me, we had this discussion about Jordan Love and these receivers. And I don't want to throw out the concern word all the time, because it's not like these receivers are world beaters, and Jordan Love's not a world beater, but he's better than Jameis Winston. And the defense last week gave up some plays. Is there what's the confidence level in your mind that the defense fixes all those issues from last week, and we don't allow Christian Watson to make these plays, or Romeo Doubs or Jordan Love to just pick apart the Lions? Like, what's your kind of take on this, the defense bouncing back and facing a quarterback like Jordan Love?
Yeah, it's all starts with this. Yeah. Amik Robertson, DJ Reed, got to get after it. And I'm excited about the potential now, seeing that Terry Arnold's questionable. I pretty much would lend to me to believe that he's going to be out there. So we'll see what he brings to the table. So look, that defense, I'm sure. The tough part is, though, is that they didn't practice. They just didn't practice. They're all mental. It's walkthroughs. So they kind of know what goes on. It's going to be a battle of attrition. There's going to be big plays made. The matchups kind of favor the what would you call it? The Packers passing attack has a little bit of an advantage. So you just got to find ways to get those turnovers. That's the key. It's just, you're going to have to, this game, I would say, maybe the defensive line, you got to call them out a little bit and say, step up, get some pressure. Yeah. If you leave, listen, it's straightforward football. If you leave Jordan Love to have 3-4 seconds in the pocket, he's going to pick you apart, and you're going to be devastated. So if you get pressure, I think that, hopefully, the likes of Aiden Hutchinson can maybe have a little bit more of a say in this contest. You get a little bit of pressure from the linebackers. They will step up a little bit more. Maybe Brian Branch will be a factor in this game. So yeah, absolutely. They're going to rebound, but the Packers are going to make plays. They're just as desperate. And from what I'm hearing from the Packers reporters, that, you know, they've been asking LaFleur questions about his job security. So, but you know, if you want to do the way that my fellows colleagues in the media do, the last couple times that Jordan Love has stepped foot in Ford Field, he's had some success, and he's left Ford Field with some victories. So we want to change that and turn that around and make sure that he doesn't. Let's get that 0 interception tally in the last couple of games at Ford Field into a 1 or 2. There'll be no problem. So what is it? I think I read 2-0 at Ford Field the last couple, no interceptions, 5 touchdowns. So let's turn those stats around and let's get the defense purring and Ford Field humming, because man, the fans, you call me mean. Y'all, I was quiet. I was sitting there typing at Ford Field. I was telling y'all on Twitter, guys, it's the Giants. Come on, they're ass. They're going to – listen, I know it's bad. It's the Giants. Y'all were out there booing loudly in my ear that I could hear through the headphones. Typically, I don't hear the fans too much because I'm listening to Dan Miller and typing and doing my work. I'm in my own la-la land. And y'all were booing loud that I was like, damn, y'all are booing. But I got it. I understood it. I respected it. Yeah. The offense was against the Giants was and seeing all those moon balls land, everyone was like, we are not happy. And thankfully the Lions did something to bring some cheers out.
All right, Doc, we'll get to our first mailbag question here from Jesse. Ask Doc, if I told you this team goes 2-1 the next 3 with one of the wins in Green Bay, would you take that deal? Second, is the Scurby situation like a Laporta thing?
Yeah, no, it's tough because you would think that they would put him on IR with Kirby, but you saw the video of him running. I just think that you listen to what Dan Campbell said directly. They want it so that, you know, they felt like the work that they would do would bring down the pain in his knee and the irritation. It just didn't. And so there's a certain level of, they don't want it to be where he's in and out of the lineup when they bring him back. They want him like, when you're ready to go, they want the doctors to tell Dan, listen, he's not going to further injure it. He's going to have to deal with some pain, but he can stay in the lineup. And after a 60-minute game, he'll be able to go back. So whenever that is, I don't feel like it's a Laporta situation. Backs is something you don't mess with. And once I think people were starting to hear it was a back injury, then they knew it was something a little bit more significant. Kirby was still has been physical and is out there still around the team. So we'll see. If you 2-1, yeah, you take it. I take it all day. I do think that I look at it from the perspective of, if you can beat the Packers and the Cowboys and you lose to the Rams, it's a good opportunity to get into that final stretch.
And then we have a question here from Dana. Says, are we automatic contenders with Frank's return? To you, Doc.
Yeah, guys, too, it's just one of those deals when you look at it, the Seahawks are, you know, Smith and Jigba is just out of this world successful. That's kind of what's I'm jealous. Like, I drafted him in a lot of fantasy leagues based on the recommendation of my nephew. And I thought that that's kind of the production that we would see with J-Mo. And I do think that at the very least, if you can get J-Mo a little bit more involved, some more time, it makes it so that Jared Goff has a better chance to be the leader of this offense. It does not make them contenders, guys. Just at this very moment, when you look at it, the Rams are playing complete football. They run the ball well. They stop the run. Matthew Stafford is, hate to say it, being my previous relationship with him, but he's playing we couldn't get this guy. We couldn't get this guy in Detroit. No, he had to go leave and mature somewhere else and run an offense that was more elaborate there. And Puka Nacua and Devontae, oh, what do you know? Going out and adding a veteran receiver that can ball with a veteran quarterback, maybe is a little bit better than a draft pick. What do you know? But that's going to be a tough task in the playoffs, man. The Rams are playing well, and going out to LA, that's going to be fun. That's going to be a fun matchup. I can't wait to sit and see and analyze them. But just look at Jared Verse, and oh man, stopping Devonta Adams is going to be freaking crazy. So unfortunately, I have to answer no.